of this. And then we have end date not mentioned for the 3 research personnel in the DoD. So
duty delegation
duty of
log, the
delegate.
end dates are missing.
Delegation log.
So
Yeah.
when did they? The start date is there, the name and signature, everything is there. But when they ended, it's not there.
Yeah.
And then
And most importantly, PI has not signed on at AE and CONMED
Conved's
logs.
log, that's missing.
AE log was
Yeah.
missing.
Subject binder.
Okay.
So the first 2 page, like it's in the beginning, and the AE and the Convent logs. So investigator has not signed or dated.
Signed or dated it.
So that would be a major.
Yeah.
That would
Yeah.
be a major. Will we
PI
call it a
oversight.
violation?
PI oversight. Yeah.
PI
That's the
oversight.
most important thing.
And would we consider a violation, right, or deviation?
If a log is missing, but it's probably not lost. It's probably just somewhere and misfiled somewhere else.
No, the log is there,
Okay.
and even the AEs are written
Yeah,
there.
A's are there. There are
They're
3
listed.
adverse events.
But he has not signed.
There are lots of concomitant medications, and he has not
didn't
signed.
sign where he's supposed to.
Yes,
and
yes.
he
Okay.
didn't date it also. So I mean nothing is
At
there.
because the trial is already over, he was supposed to sign.
Aha. Was there any notes files?
We didn't
And
see
nothing
that.
to
We could
explain
find,
this.
yeah.
So if you were an auditor, and this is good for you too, because
And
you
it's right in the beginning. So
Yeah.
the first thing anybody sees is that when they open the binder, after a few pages.
for the reg binder,
Yeah.
It's a subject binder.
it's from the subject binder.
Because AE and CONMED are subject specific, right? Those
Okay.
logs are subject specific.
Yeah.
So most of the logs that we saw, he has not signed.
And was
for.
there a place to sign?
Yes, there.
This is
Mhm.
it's empty.
So that's could be an issue. It shows the PI oversight.
Yeah.
Now, when you look through were you able to look through any of the follow-up letters that the monitors?
No, we didn't find any follow-up letter.
No.
No, we didn't
Okay.
find. We tried, we didn't find. Yeah, even the communications are
Because the
missing.
monitor letters
in-
I saw, they looked kind of. That's the first time I'm looking at that study too. We're using a new one for this new class. But the monitoring letters I saw looked like not very detailed.
Yeah, I saw them and they were just a formal kind of thing,
Yeah.
just 1 or 2 lines, and that's
You'll see a
it.
detailed one on
We didn't
Jana.
see
Yeah,
any
it was
detailed
very-
letter for it, and basically there are no communications filed in the regulatory binder, so we
Yeah.
are not having any idea what's exactly going on.
They're supposed to be very detailed with action. Like when you switch right after this, look at 4. The action items, the follow-up letter on Jana's is extremely detailed. Like what did you see on there?
And it had exactly what Monica needed to do and have prepared for the next visit, and if it was like a reportable or a deviation, it had if it was a deviation, if it wasn't, if it was reported to the ORB, if it wasn't reported to the ORB.
Right.
Everything.
Right. We didn't find that in there because there are 2 or 3 deviations, but we didn't see any communication part of it.
And so that's a good. So you're a coordinator. You want to be like maybe a coordinator or
Our
an
in-house CRA.
and then you.
Same like I would like
Okay.
to be in-house and or CRC.
CRC,
Yeah.
yeah. Eventually CRA. So in your job interviews, see the way they interview at clinics is different than how they interview at CRO and sponsor. It's just totally different. They still care about these issues, but from different perspectives. So when a site is interviewing you, they want to see how you would fix these things before a monitor would see it.
Technical experience.
That's right. What if they're interviewing you as a CRA? They're going to ask you, how do you document this, and how do you follow up to prevent this from happening in the future, or how do you retrain? It all comes down to retraining.
Right.
So depends who is interviewing you, like how you should do the STAR scenario, because they're going to paint the same situation, but then they'll ask you differently, like how I had a student, I don't know if you've seen the video, but she was doing a study coordinator interview, and she was asked what you would do, or what she would do if she noticed on the informed consent that one of the pages is missing a patient initial, but the patient had already left, right? Like, and so the next day they caught it. That this was her interview question, and she was working as a coordinator at a site. So she initially she said I would call the CRA, and that's
But that's not
Not an
very
answer.
important issue.
right. It's not wrong, but it's not something a site would, like a site director would want to hear. They would want to hear you're going to talk to the PI, maybe write a note to file, or maybe just let the PI handle it how they want to. They just want to see how you react in these situations.
In this case, we can wait for their next visit and write a note to file that.
Yeah. That's what I would have done. Yeah,
Mm.
that's what I would have said. But now, like with AE logs, for example, like if the PI didn't sign the AE log, you know, how would you handle that as a coordinator
Yeah.
versus how would you handle that as a CRA? It's very different, right?
But in either case, we will have to address it to the PI.
Yeah.
Either
In either
he
case,
has
yeah.
to be confronted and
So yeah,
requested and talked about recently.
and as a coordinator, it's very basic. You just give them the pen. And say, here,
Say
Sign
sign.
this.
sign this. You forgot,
But
right?
date.
Mm-hmm. And date that date.
Yeah, the same date.
Yeah.
Yes.
And sometimes those things are not like a SAE. The date matters because a SAE needs to be reported within 24 hours of the event, right?
Mhm.
But you can send that form off without a PI signature if you're gonna miss that deadline, because it's better that the sponsor and IRB get the report, even if it's missing a PI signature. Just the coordinator can write a narrative of what happened just to get that out there. Ideally, you want the PI to sign it and everything, but if that time frame where it's within 24 hours that you have to report it, I'd rather do that, and I have done that before. I would just sign it and send it, and then I have my PI sign it later. So in interviews, if you say that at a site level, if you can demonstrate that you understand how to solve problems like those when they occur, that's really what you're looking for in those things. So that's for the AE log. Now, as a CRA, how would you handle that? Because
The
now it's
AE
too
and the
late.
convex,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's
We
late, but
would,
still we'll have to address it.
Yeah.
So, of course, PI, we have to address PI and also inform the CRC.
Yeah. Both
Probably
of
Action
you.
items,
actually
yeah.
first, probably I'll talk to CRC and ask what's happening here. And do you know why he missed it? And you know,
Yeah.
show him, and then
Put it on an action item.
Action
and
item.
put it on action item and talk about his oversight, importance of his
Yeah.
responsibilities.
That's right.
in the-
So I know we talked to you guys this morning, SDR versus SDV. You guys know the difference? Do you know?
Mm.
SDR?
Source data review and source data verification.
Yeah.
Yeah.
SDR and then SDV.
So I have very slight idea. So review is like, it's not detailed, right?
No, it is detailed.
It is detailed.
Yeah.
Okay. SDV.
This is extremely detailed. This requires like
Okay.
in-depth knowledge, deep understanding of the protocol, deep understanding of GCP, Alcoa-C now.
Let's see.
Complete.
Okay. Source data review, and then source data verification.
Verification is just
That's
Very-
very simple.
Verifying that.
verifying
there was
against
data.
the source, the
Yeah.
CRF data against
So
the
you'll
source.
see on the source weight, height,
Mhm.
you know, and then you'll look on the EDC to make sure they're the same. Okay.
Yeah.
SDR,
So
We have to
Is-
correlate all the documents.
That's
In
right.
SDV, we don't do that. I mean, we just compare, not much correlation between the communication, how did the story really made sense according to Chris. That applies more to SDR according to me.
yeah, that's like why they need monitors and coordinators. So any coordinator that wants to be a monitor, when you're at your site, you should be focusing on source data review, even if it's not asked of you.
Mhm.
Like that's also quality assurance. It's the same thing. That's why we put QA on your resume.
Yeah.
Okay. That SDR and quality assurance is the same thing. And so any coordinator that wants to transition to be a CRA, which is what all of you guys want to do, that's what I've done. You force yourself to do QA and SDR. Okay? And then you put that on your resume. So an example, here's an important difference. Many studies have windows between visits that
Plus or
have to be
minus.
kept, right? Like, yeah, usually it's plus or minus 3 days or plus or minus 7 days.
Yeah.
Well, in the SDV, unless the EDC automatically triggers a query,
Mhm.
if you put a date in there that's outside of that window
Mhm.
and the EDC doesn't auto query it, the good ones do, but sometimes they don't.
They don't.
And you can't rely on that.
Yeah.
How will you know? I mean, the SDV is correct,
Mm-hmm.
but the SDR will tell you that's deviation.
SDR will tell us.
Okay, so you can't just go with SDV.
Mm.
You can't just look at what's on the paper and then it's the same on the EDC and then your job's done.
Yeah.
Like that's your job is really just starting at that point. It's really okay, that happened. Now, are we still following the protocol? Right? Same thing with a conmed. You may add a conmed that's contradictory to the protocol.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the SDV's not going to know that. You're just entering a drug in the system. It's not going to query you.
Mm-hmm.
So how will you know if that's an exclusion criteria? And now it's deviation, right? Yeah, and now even worse, it's the patient gets sick or dies because no one was paying attention. And so that's really what the CRAs are hired for. Like this SDV, anyone can do it. This is not hard. Like, who has 7-year-olds? You
Yes.
7-year-olds can do that. I mean, look, it says 200 pounds here and 200 pounds here. Is it the same or different?
Right.
That's not why they pay the CRAs the big bucks.
Yeah.
That is where all the action happens. And that's where the problems happen. It's not SDV.
Yeah, I read one
I'm still-
article where
Sorry, please go ahead.
I read one article where the experienced CRA, that lady was saying, most of the CRAs, what they do is SDV, and that's the reason a lot of mistakes are not caught.
So many.
She was like, it's happening nowadays because they just want to get it done. But she was like,
That's
even
right.
when
Who told you this?
I just read it somewhere.
This is exactly correct.
Initially, like she started some 20 years back, and she said that time when we used to become CRA, we used to get trained on the particular therapeutic area. Now the CRAs don't know about the therapeutic area,
Yeah.
and that's the reason they can't catch those mistakes.
And that's why they want, when you're, let's say they're hiring a CRA or even a CRC for a specific indication, that's why they want that experience for that indication, because there's conmeds that you need to be familiar with, right? So anything you put on your CV that you have experience with, you need to know the conmeds, the common conmeds for that indication. Like you guys have schizophrenia because you've been doing it here now. And when you go to Atlanta, you'll be doing you the same. You'll know the conmeds at your site, and you're a nurse. You're gonna be a nurse. So
No,
you
I
know
am a
this.
nurse.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you know.
I've been a
that
nurse
stuff.
for 2 years.
Yeah, so you know that though.
Yeah.
But that's why they require that, because if it's some medication that's just specific for that indication, and you're a CRA that has no experience with that, you'll do the SDV good, but you won't necessarily know you won't know what class of drug that is unless you Google it, because the protocol will say certain classes of drugs are excluded.
Excluded.
It's not going to mention all of them.
First generation.
It's just going to say, yeah, like atypical antipsychotics, right? Or mood stabilizers excluded. Well, if you don't know what a mood stabilizer is,
How are you gonna know what's excluded?
yeah, because the SDV, you'll have no problem with that.
Yeah.
If it says lithium, and then the EDC says lithium. But if the exclusion criteria says no mood stabilizers,
And they're on it.
But
unless you're Googling it and say, what is lithium a mood stabilizer? But then you've got to Google like all the
Oh.
CONMEDs, and it's just a lot more work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they want that medical or therapeutic indication experience.
I have a question, Dan. Like yesterday, I mean, when we were with Chris, we did the source data verification.
Yeah.
But there also we have this following Alcoa C and
Mm-hmm.
detail thing.
But
So
with
what,
Chris, you didn't do SDV because that would be you need the EDC for that.
yeah, like not the EDC kind of thing,
Yeah.
but we did go through and he did say that you have to pay attention to Alcoa
Yeah.
C.
Yeah.
So.
But you were
and-
doing SDR.
Yeah, so here we are doing SDR.
But with Chris, you were doing the same SDR
So
too.
that is also SDR. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that
SDV
was,
is simple. Remember the
I thought
scenarios?
it's a source. Okay, now I get
Because
it.
we didn't
Yeah.
have CRS.
Because so I was thinking we are doing without the EDC, but this is also
Yeah.
so that's
Remember the source, the scenarios in
Mhm.
weeks 9, 10, and 11?
Mhm.
That was SDV,
That was SDV.
right? But they get into a little bit of SDR too.
okay.
Mm.
But that's the simple part. Like they'll pretty soon have robots that can do the SDV.
Mm-hmm.
They're already working on software that can
Do
kind of figure it out.
Figure it out.
But this is harder.
okay. So now I get it. And what we are doing today is also SDR.
Are you doing
Yeah.
SDR?
So
Yeah.
it's the same thing.
Yeah, because we don't have EDC. Tomorrow, Monica's going to show you guys the EDC,
Okay.
just so you get a feel for another EDC outside of the one we've used in the academy. But just remember, just keep these distinctions in mind. And PI oversight and patient safety, that's really the most, only two concepts you need to know.
Mm.
Like all questions, no matter CRO or site level, stem from those two topics. That's it. And it's really just patient safety, because PI oversight is part of patient safety. It's all designed to make sure that the right patients are being followed as per GCP, as per the protocol. Sometimes there's safety reasons for the protocol being written the way it is. So it's not just a matter of they want the data to look better. Sometimes that happens too, but sometimes it's safety issues.
Okay.
And you're not going to know unless you're a doctor. You would know.
Mm.
For some of them maybe, but you can't just assume anything.
And everything is documented. Everything should be, written in this field. That's what I've realized.
Yeah,
Because that goes on from one person to another. So that's the only source of knowing.
that's
and
right.
something.
Mm-hmm.
And in that study you guys reviewed, it's very sloppy.
Hmm.
The study Jana reviewed is very well documented, well organized. So you'll see a difference. Like when you go see theirs, you're gonna things are missing. That was with another PI here,
Mhm.
years ago when we first opened.
I thought the beginning of that one was a little more. I got kind of confused because it looks like the CRC's changed.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
there's a
Like-
lot of turnover.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
the CRA's changed too.
What you could see,
Every letter
very well
was different.
documented is the later part of the study. Like
Yeah.
back in August, it was not. It was more scattered.
Which one? The one you reviewed?
Mm-hmm.
Ah, okay.
But then, like the further you get, the more organized the binders get.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was my opinion on it.
Yeah. And that's a key trait of a good coordinator is to be organized.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll ask you, well, why is that important? Well, you already have a job. They'll ask you guys. They'll ask you guys, why is that important to be organized?
To save yourself from future troubles.
Yeah, yeah. To save and from present troubles too,
Of course, yeah.
like deviations. They're tracking everything.
Everything nowadays, yeah.
They're the metrics for everything are at the site level, and the sites know that. At least the smarter sites know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the time you answer a query, the time you enter data,
Yes, I
Everything.
Times
Credits,
stamped.
credit score for the site.
Yeah. they're trying to push for that.
Mm.
There's like a race for that. So what's some of the other stuff on the report?
Correspondence with the IRB sponsor is missing.
Okay, which correspondence?
Regarding deviations, there were deviations
Mhm.
and you
Needs
didn't
to
find
How many
them.
deviations you said?
I at least saw 2 deviations
2?
for sure.
Did you see it? Deviations?
There was one on there. that the monitor had just recently caught on the follow-up letter. I can't remember right off what it was, but
Okay.
it had been addressed already. It wasn't anything need to be reported to the NRB. It was some kind of maybe like a signature or something, or I can't remember. I
It
didn't
was-
bring it with me.
But the deviation had already happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so, see if someone spent more time on SDR, it may have been prevented.
I think it was now I think about it, I think it was, there was a new or amendment, an informed consent amendment that wasn't signed, and the patient came for a visit, and the
Okay.
amendment had already been posted, and it needed to be signed,
Yep.
but it wasn't signed
Yep,
at the visit.
that is a deviation.
Mm-hmm.
It's and it's technically one that impacts patient safety too. So each time, you know what protocol amendments and ICF amendments, they trigger a lot of things, right? Like training logs. Each time a protocol is amended, you need new training for all the staff.
Sure.
You need a new ICF,
I see.
right? Usually it triggers a new
Most
ICF.
of the time.
And if you're not, and see, that's another thing SDV doesn't capture. Like you don't enter, if a subject comes in to reconsent because the protocol is amended and the ICF is amended, that's usually not something that's captured, that's entered in the EDC.
Mm.
It's just, they just put date of screening as the first date. So the SDV is showing nothing, nothing's going on, but if the site forgets to reconsent, that's only going to be caught through SDR, right? This is, EDC's not going to catch that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why sometimes sites, because they get busy, they forget to, like, they're not organized, back to being organized. Like you should have a process at the site when an ICF is amended, copies are made, and it's put in the patient source book. All the active patients should get a blank ICF, just put in the source. So that next time the patient's there, you open it,
There it is.
and you may have forgotten, but you're like, oh yeah, I need to do this, right? But if someone's not staying on top of that, all it takes is one time a person to forget or just be too busy, or maybe the printer's not working that day, and then they just forget about it, so they don't print the blank source. And now the patient comes in and nobody remembers.
And then the patient's gone, and
Then
they didn't get signed, and you already
You
did
guys
procedure.
know the
for-
rest.
Yeah.
And this happens all the time because they're even asking these things in interviews for coordinators. So if you can demonstrate that you can do QA, which is what your CV will have. I mean, every site needs that. Like when you guys review our books here, our monitor is coming Monday. Well, you guys reviewed the books, right? Like that helps us. It never hurts to have more
I think
eyes on
with
something.
more
Yeah.
practice it gets better. I think
Mhm.
Right.
it was initially we were having
And you didn't know the protocol well. I mean, you
Right.
just saw it.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a deep understanding of the protocol, you'll be able to.
I like
Pick
to
things up
practice
right
more
away.
on this so that
Right.
you know
Right.
Mhm.
can become
I think
proficient.
nowadays sites are like going more for QA. Initially they were not worried, but I think now sites are even worried about
Yeah.
the QA thing.
Protocol are getting more complex,
Complex.
and by
And they
what
have
that
to
means
perform.
is more opportunity for deviations.
Yeah.
The more complex the study gets,
Yes.
the more opportunity to make mistakes.
Right.
Right. Another deviation is that will not be caught with SDV. I'm actually a monitor on a study. The patients need to take aspirin prior to an infusion if they are over 75
Mm-hmm.
or if they have a heart condition, history of heart condition. Okay. Otherwise, you don't need to give them aspirin before the infusion. SDV is not going to catch that. Like you'll put aspirin in there, right? If they're taking aspirin or if they're not. And
No.
if you're a coordinator, you're not going to know unless you know the protocol well. Same thing with the CRA. If they're just looking at the EDC and they're not actually reading the protocol and understanding, okay, this patient was not given aspirin. Are they over 75? No. Okay. Do they have a heart condition? No. Okay, that's fine. Now, if there is someone who's 75 and they weren't given aspirin, that's deviation. So the same data, no aspirin for both,
Mhm.
but one is deviation, one is not, and the EDC will not pick that up. At least not the way they're designed
They are
yet.
designed yet.
Eventually they might.
Eventually they will
They'll
pop
get
up.
smart. That's why they want eSource.
Yeah.
eSource, you know, like the little tablets that you write on. I don't know if this
The
the study you
doctors
have.
they already use those EMR
Yeah, they
things
do.
the same
Yeah,
way
yeah.
eSource. Yeah.
Clinical research always follows
Like an
Right.
e-diary?
more than an e-diary. So for your study, I think it's paper source.
Mm-hmm. But we,
So they're gonna eventually have source like on a iPad
mm-hmm.
with a stylus,
Yeah.
and you just log in. You find your subject. You'll see that visit,
Yeah.
and you just write with e-ink. It's just like paper, but it's saved there. Well,
Yeah.
they're scanning all that, like they're
Yeah.
looking at that
That is
algorithm, and they're matching it with the SDV, and with AI as they're already starting to use this. As AI gets better, the AI is gonna have a deep understanding of these things.
Yeah.
So they're gonna see from the e-source immediately if something's
Mhm.
a deviation or not. We're all in trouble at that point.
I know.
We are, except the ones dealing with the patients, right? Like coordinator.
Like coordinate.
They can't be replaced because you still have to.
Somebody
Have an
has to
interaction
perform
with
that
them.
study,
Yep.
do the
But monitors or QA at a site,
Mm-hmm.
it's already done.
That will take a
It's
long
already
time,
done.
right?
Yeah, I think so. But they're working on it.
But they are.
They're working on it.
Nowadays, technology is changing very fast.
Yeah, I think we have like 10 years before it gets serious,
Right.
and then another 10 years before we have to like think how we're gonna adjust. But that's like what 2040. Like we might be flying around by then, so we won't care about that,
Seriously.
right?
Yeah.
For the time being, you have to know this. Very practical.
Mhm.
Okay? And there's no way to do a good SDR job unless you don't know the protocol, like fully, and then Alcoa and GCP.
So ideally, how do you spend time when you go for doing the review?
Yeah.
And
So
how much time
what
does
we
it take
do
for you to
is,
do the protocol?
Yep. So we'll have the coordinator do the visit. So let's say like Jana at her site. You have two people at your site.
Mm-hmm.
It's you and
Brittany.
Brittany. So whoever the main coordinator is, like here is Monica. Okay. They do the visit. Let's say a patient comes in, they do the visit, they enter in the EDC. Now, somebody else who's like a backup coordinator should do a QA on that visit.
Backup coordinator.
Yeah.
Second-
Ideally, you want the
second
PI
pass.
to do this, but we all know that's not happening
That's not possible.
ever. Well, not ever, but it's not happening.
Most of the time.
I mean, how busy are your doctors at the?
I'm busy.
Would they do SDR on a visit?
Never.
See, I've never met one that will do it.
Right.
That's they're not gonna do it.
Yeah, last time I went for a visit with my pediatrician for my kids, and she was like very busy with her EMR. She was trying to find out, and like rather than concentrating more on patients, they are like trying to figure out more stuff on the
That's
EMR. They're finding
happening.
it's
That's
little
happening,
difficult
yeah.
right now. They are in the phase transforming.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So that's what other stuff?
And
Uh,
one subject they said he was rescreened, but we couldn't find his initial
Details.
screening details.
Oh, okay. So how did you know he was rescreened?
Note to file.
CRC.
Note
Progress
file.
note. No, not to
CRC
not progress note. Yeah.
And what did it say?
That the patient was
Mhm.
rescreened on this date,
Mhm.
and then we tried to search for it. We couldn't find it.
A rescreened.
Yeah, the rescreening was there. The previous one was not there, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, the
previous-
initial screening
Initial screening
reports
was not there.
we didn't find them.
Source.
Source.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
That's
that
a
would
big
be
deal.
a big deviation.
Yeah. Which part of Alcoa is that?
Missing. So it's
Missing.
not complete. It's not complete.
Complete.
It's not
Complete.
complete and
Attributable.
Attributable maybe. Yeah.
So, and what about not contemporaneous, right? It's not at the
Well,
same
it could
time.
be,
Could be a little
because
bit,
you
but
don't
it's not the same time.
contemporaneous. Yeah.
Contemporaneous.
I would say attributable and contemporaneous and
Complete.
complete, obviously. Yeah. So that's something else. Like if you're doing SDR and you have QA at your site, and if wherever you go get hired, if you don't have QA, you take the initiative as the coordinator to do that, and you train your colleague. Hey, I'm gonna QA your studies, you QA mine. But this is how we help each other out. Unless you have a very involved PI, it's not going to come from them. And then you need like a site director, maybe someone who's knowledgeable on this. They'll have you do that. But if you go to research like a newer or small site, it's just you and maybe somebody else, or maybe it's just you.
Yeah.
And then you got to QA your own stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But the way to do that is do the visit, go take a break or do something else to switch your mind, and then come back to it and do like pretend like you're an outsider looking at something new and see if you find anything, because you'll be surprised what you find. But I prefer when somebody else looks at it, because it's like a new set of
eyes. It does
eyes.
make a lot of difference. You yourself, it's very difficult to catch your own mistakes. Because the trial that I worked, I was basically as intern there, and I thought there would be someone to train me, and they just dropped me there, and the whole study I was all alone from start to end. Yeah.
And people always ask what's the best way to transition from CRC to CRA, and it's doing this, because that is what CRAs do. When you start QAing your own stuff, all you're doing is what a monitor is going to be doing. So you start putting those skills on your CV, and now when you have a few years of coordinator experience, and it's not just that, it's QA, and then you speak well about it at the interviews. They hire coordinators all the time to be CRAs. What else? Did you find anything in that?
Also, sorry.
Go ahead. I gotta pull mine back.
Also, we couldn't find many things on lab, like the lab kit, and there were questions regarding that which we couldn't answer.
There was a deviation of that missing colonoscopy, and they said that it will be followed up. We didn't find a follow-up
Thing
on that.
Then
Didn't find the colonoscopy.
And that was one of the part of inclusion-exclusion criteria.
Yes, and you couldn't find the colonoscopy.
It's missing. That was a deviation captured, but there was no follow-up after that. That we didn't find any follow-up communication after that.
Yeah. Okay. That's another one when you need like an assessment, like a colonoscopy, or for example, in Alzheimer's studies, you need like an MRI. You can't randomize that person until you get those results, right? But what's stopping a site from forgetting that and then going to the IWRS and randomizing a patient because they think that everything's done? Because again, the EDC is not going to trigger a missing colonoscopy or a missing MRI until after it's out of window. Then the EDC, if they auto-query, will auto-query and say, hey, this is out of window. But many times they don't, because it's just blank, so it's nothing. It's not going to do anything. So you can randomize someone in error. This is the biggest thing you don't want to do because you're about to get a study. Do not randomize someone until you go through all the IE criteria. Go through it like 10 times. All of it. And this is really where the PIs, I know they don't do much, but they should spend some time on the IE criteria. Like, think really hard before randomizing. Because once you push that button on the IWRS, there's no going back. There's no, oops, I forgot to, we didn't do this MRI. I can't. That's already deviation. It's better to go out of window and ask for a waiver than to get that deviation, right? Or, God forbid, like randomize someone when you shouldn't have, and then they get sick or something from the meds because they had one of the exclusion criteria. I mean, that's the worst. Right?
Yeah.
So just pay attention to those things when you're coordinating or QAing. You might be able to get the in-house CRA position without coordinating.
There are very few CROs in Atlanta. I heard of Quintals and PPD.
And sponsors,
and Syngin, I guess.
Syneos.
Sinjin.
Oh, see, oh, that's a new one.
I
Okay.
heard they are opening up. I'm not very sure.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, it's probably gonna be like a coordinator, unless you can do it like with one of the hospitals, like an in-house type of work with them,
mm-hmm.
because they have like their own QA people in place.
Mm-hmm.
So you said earlier nobody from South Carolina. Charleston is a big,
USC or
Mhm.
that's
MUSC.
MUSC. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but that's academic research. They're different.
Oh.
I mean, all these things still apply,
Mm-hmm.
but they'll hire someone just to do QA, and then a coordinator, and then like it depends how big they are, like a trial master file.
Like Duke, Duke University.
Mhm.
But I guess again that's academic.
Yeah, they call those ARO, Academic Research Organization,
Oh.
because it's like a CRO,
Mm.
but also like a site, because they monitor themselves sometimes. For all their own investigator-initiated studies, they monitor themselves, because there's no CRO that's monitoring, because it's not an industry-sponsored study, right? But they also do some studies from outside, and then CROs go monitor there as well.
Mm-hmm. Actually, those guys have a huge documentation and a lot of work to do.
Which one?
The
The
hospital
ARO?
ones,
Yeah.
like we have Emory and Northside in Atlanta, but they won't let you in very easily. Like even I tried to ask them for volunteer, but they won't let. They will just ask you
No,
to move
yeah.
the subjects. They won't let you touch the documents.
In those places, probably not, unless you get lucky, you can volunteer. But it's better. You probably have better chances going in for an interview.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe.
What else did you guys catch?
Then IP. Has the
IP,
IP been
yeah.
stored appropriately? We couldn't find the log, so the
Yeah,
log
logs.
was missing, and
Oh, really?
as a result, we could not even.
IP
Maybe
further
it's fine
accountability.
somewhere else, but we didn't find a lot of logs.
And tomorrow with Monica, you're gonna do IP accountability.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's on her list of things to do. She's done that with the last group of students. She's been doing that now. She's good because she's actually doing it
Doing it.
in real time.
Alright.
So she'll show you guys.
Oh, sure.
Um,
Similarly, we had other
Shipment records.
like emergency code break envelope. That was not applicable. So, has there been a break in the code? We do not know. So
that's right.
shipment records.
How
on
would you
file.
know that? How would you?
I think there should be some. We were hoping to see some note there mentioned about the break of this
At
thing.
least
And
a
the
documentation
PI,
of a standard procedure to break the code.
and then
Yeah.
at least PI's signature or mention if there is a break of code, because he's the one who is going to do
So
something.
to break the code is usually an envelope, a sealed envelope,
Mm-hmm.
and it's usually kept with the drug. Did you guys receive like one of these?
Not
Break the blind. You will.
we hadn't received
Anything yet,
anything
right?
yet. We
Okay.
just did our regulatory.
You will.
comments.
So you're gonna get this envelope that's sealed,
Mm-hmm.
and it's gonna have a letter with it. It says this is only for the PI. It should be locked. These are the codes to break the blind
Mm-hmm.
for a subject.
Mm-hmm.
So do you guys know why that would be important? Like when that would?
To
Because
determine if
Subject
they were,
safety.
When
Yeah.
subject safety.
what they were
critical
on, they were
situation
placebo
when he's-
or
Mhm.
medication.
Yeah, if he's having a lot of adverse reaction or
Yeah.
he's life threatening.
If they go to the
life
ER,
threatening.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and the
If
ER
it's
doctor.
SAE,
yeah.
then and suicide.
No, SUSAR is a little different.
Uh-huh.
Suspected and
SUSAR is
suspected.
suspected, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do you know the difference between SAE and SUSAR?
Yes.
So SUSAR is IP.
Suicide is IP related. SAE may or may not be IP related.
And
Okay.
also there's another thing that SUSAR suspected unexpected
Yeah.
serious adverse
Serious adverse
reaction.
reactions.
So in this, there's another thing which I was reading. It's unexpected because it is not in the
Not
IP.
In the IB,
investigator's brochure.
they don't know about
So
it.
that's
Not in the
one.
investigative
Yeah,
brochure.
because I used to wonder why they call it unexpected. Then I investigated and I found it's because
Suspected,
it's not in the
Unexpected.
So we suspect it is related to IP and unexpected because it's not in the IB.
IB.
So that's it.
That's a good way to explain it.
And-
Sometimes they even have the expected ones that make the
SUSAR.
SUSAR reports too.
Expected one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if it's an AE of or a SAE of significant interest to the FDA, it will still get sent out on the letter,
Oh.
on the SUSAR list, all the sites.
Oh.
And that's
I
one of the
listened
things you're
to
going to learn is the SUSARs. So you're going to just, anytime there's a SUSAR event at any site doing the study with your drug, you'll get a letter. And then the PI has to sign and date it, and you got to file it. And then
Put that in the regulatory binder.
yeah, and then when the monitor comes, they have like a log of all of them, and she's just gonna make sure that
We
all
got
of them are there and signed, and yeah, that way you know what to look out for in your patients, right? Like if they have similar symptoms, but maybe
Maybe
you're
not
not
all of
thinking-
them
yeah.
or
and maybe you can prevent like a
I see
SAE
what
from
you're
happening. So that's why they do that. What else did you guys find?
And tracking log, that is also
Lab
the
samples.
all
Lab
the
samples?
Like right.
stored
Like PK.
basically.
PK samples.
lab
Do we have any documentation for that? That lab samples
Yeah.
for
They
this
stored
There needs to
correctly.
be a sample log. Yeah.
log, right?
Mhm.
So we didn't find that log.
Note to file, was there anything?
No.
I
no.
didn't notice. I don't know if you
No,
noticed.
there were no note to files in the regulatory binder at
No,
all.
I don't-
Okay.
That was one thing, and then
So that would be an action item for sure.
Mm-hmm.
If I were the CRA, I would get them to start a log.
Right.
And if I'm the coordinator, I would create a log.
Create
And
a
usually the
log.
sponsors give you those templates.
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't, you just need to make one.
Make
But usually
one
they'll
for
give you
yourself.
one.
Yeah.
They'll give you all the templates for the reg binder.
Right. Right.
They won't make the source for you.
Right. I made those logs for the
Oh, you used to make
trials. Like as a medical writer.
Okay.
Yeah. So we need
Oh, you used to make those logs.
Yeah, protocols, informed consent forms, case report forms, logs.
Okay. That's good. There's tons of logs. There's logs
yeah,
for
a lot
everything.
of them, yeah.
there's log.
And it's better you have more
Screening
logs.
enrollment.
Yes.
Informed consent, AE, SAE.
temperature log.
There's a
Yeah,
log
that's
for
it.
everything. But you
But that
have
makes
fun
it,
with that.
but
That's-
that makes it easy to track things.
Yes. But not
Keep
fun
up
when
with-
you're the coordinator and have to do
Of
all
course,
that.
but
yeah, write all out.
Then
Fill them all out.
when CRA asks you all
Or you
of a
better
sudden,
get Brittany to get to work.
Yeah, that's the plan.
You'll supervise.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Right.
You'll do the SDR.
Yeah.
I'll send you some of the logs that I have.
Yeah, please.
There you
I
go.
will do that.
You have the template.
That's
yeah,
good to have.
I have some.
That will be awesome.
That's good. Now
That
you
would
have a
be
monitoring
awesome.
log
I will
too.
send you.
And the monitoring log is another one. The one the monitor comes in, they sign. Did you find that one?
Visit log, yes, it
Visit
was
Okay,
log
there.
was there.
Did you see how many different monitors there were? Were there a lot?
There were
Yes,
lots.
there were a lot of them.
Yeah, see,
There were
high
lots.
turnover.
And
for
there
that
was
study.
one visit, observation visit. What was that?
Which visit is that? The last?
No, it was in the middle somewhere. Observation visit.
And what's the assessments? Oh, the monitor came for an observation visit. That means that the monitor's supervisor came with them
They-
to do a co-monitoring.
Co-monitoring. Okay.
They do that for two reasons, maybe more. Right? I can think of two.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of data, and not enough for one person.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're reviewing that CRA's work,
CRA's work.
which is nerve-wracking if you're a CRA.
Of course.
I had that happen to me on my second monitoring visit ever as a monitor.
Oh my god.
Someone watching you over your shoulder.
Yeah.
So how
They-
did that go?
Yeah.
It actually went really well because they didn't really know what they're doing. So it went really well. They thought I was an expert. They didn't know the videos or any of that. They thought I was like a senior CRA.
Okay.
And so, but I knew what I was doing. But I was nervous.
Of course. I'll start shivering.
Yeah, it's kind of unpleasant. And like when you work at these big CROs, that's, those people do know what they're doing. Like that's all they do is this. So they're really looking at, and they're trying to help you improve because everyone's in a race to get more CRAs. There's just a shortage of CRAs. There's a shortage of experienced
Experienced
CRAs.
CRAs.
There's not a shortage of people
Of
that want to
people
be
those
CRAs.
want to be CRAs.
So they're not going to just fire people left and right, but they're trying to make them improve. Now, if someone's slacking off, I don't know if Chris told you the story of we had a monitor at one of our other sites, and the guy kept coming. We had a lot of data. The guy kept coming in for like an hour.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
told you
us
that?
about
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
he did.
mean, unreal. You know, and sometimes sites, and you're going to be doing this at your site, sometimes payments are triggered by monitoring review, SDV. So, like when I monitor at my 2 sites, after I do the SDV, I have to click an extra button that said, I think it's confirm. I have to confirm that I did all of it.
Release
Right.
payment.
Yeah, but it doesn't say release payment.
Right,
It just says
to
confirm.
release the payment, they will just confirm.
Yeah, and so if you're not doing that, the site's not getting paid, and it's pretty dumb if you're a CRA, because you're gonna get caught
Yeah.
if you go 3 visits and
Not
the
confirmed.
site's not getting paid, and then they complain,
Mhm.
and then they look at the EDC and they're like, "What's this guy doing?"
Yeah.
You know, now you can just lazily do SDV, like I was talking about, which 7-year-olds can do, and you can finish in an hour. Right? You just look through everything and make sure it's fine.
Matches. Yeah.
Even worse, you just look through the first one. Oh, this site's good. They don't make mistakes. I'll just confirm all of them, and then I'll take off.
Oh.
And it's okay until there's a protocol deviation, and then they do a co-monitoring visit with that monitor, and they say, "Why didn't you catch this? Why didn't you catch this?
Oh.
Why didn't you catch this? Who are you? What's your CV? What are you doing?" Yeah, and then you can get fired.
Yeah.
But once you hit that 2-year mark as a CRA, you can get even if you get fired, you get another job. It's just there's such a shortage.
Right.
So sometimes they don't care.
Yeah.
And like the study you guys monitor, there was a lot of turnover, a lot. And you notice some of those follow-up letters. You'll see now when you switch, the follow-up letters are sloppy on that one.
Oh.
Yes.
On Jana's,
We were-
it's really good.
Yeah, we were expecting to see more, but
You'll see more on Jana's when you guys switch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can tell who's a good CRA and who's not just by
Right.
that.
Yeah.
What else you guys find?
I just had a question. You know, y'all have changed facilities, so the thing is,
Yeah.
study facilities change. So,
Uh-huh.
what about where does that need to be documented?
Good question.
Mm-hmm.
What does that affect?
I mean, everything.
First
the
of
whole
all,
study.
Right.
The only note to file I saw was where the IP was transported.
Regulatory.
IP.
Yep. So what reg docs would that affect?
protocol,
Site moved.
ICF.
Site moved.
Mode.
Happens a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. So which documents have to be redone now for the site?
Protocol. No,
15,
no, protocol will stay.
Yeah.
Right?
15,
That's one of the few that will stay.
What about ICF?
Yeah,
ICF.
ICF will
ICF will
change.
go. Then training.
1572 will have
retrain
address of the
the staff,
site.
right?
1572.
1572. FDF it? Will we need to
Uh,
do that?
yeah.
Financial disclosure.
If it has the site address, yeah, it has to be
Have to
redone.
be FDF.
This is a good interview question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
What else? What has not changed?
What does
protocol
that mean?
doesn't change.
Protocol.
Protocol.
Then
Training logs.
No.
training we'll have to retrain the staff, right?
Why?
Or
Why?
if it's a new site, no?
Why?
You're
because-
just changing the place.
Okay.
But like, did the calibration log and all that's got to be redone?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. IP related, we have to
The
follow the
IP.
SOP for IP transfer.
Equipment.
Equipment.
Yeah.
You need some of the equipment. You need like a SOP for. How did you transfer it? For the IP, you need a SOP.
And temperature.
Temperature also. Temperature log.
Log.
Temperature log during the
we have
transit.
During the transit.
So what should go on the IP transportation temperature log?
The temp,
What
during
should go?
transportation, when you moved it, what
Yep.
you moved it
Yeah,
in.
since when the moving
What it
And
was
also the
started,
temperature,
what was the
because they have to maintain
temperature?
it. So
Yeah.
initial and
When
these are
you- yeah,
automatic.
initial,
When you come
yeah.
to the site, you have to do the reading
So
and all
temperature.
the
Mhm.
temperature.
What else?
How many there were, who
Yeah.
transported it.
Who? What was another important one?
The
Yeah.
total
Details
accountability
about
of
it, the how many were transported from there
Accountability?
and how
Quantity,
much came, right? So
Mhm.
quantity we have to maintain that, and then
What about time?
time
Yeah.
took.
Yep.
Yes,
That's
start
very
and
important.
stop
date.
time.
Obviously,
Time,
date,
date,
too.
Yeah.
So,
who,
It's
temperature,
important.
quantity, time, date.
Mm-hmm.
and they, when you move, the first thing they ask the sponsor is, what is your IP transportation SOP?
Okay.
Right.
Standard operating procedure.
And we have to also communicate about our transfer to IRB to sponsor the CRA.
That's right. So the ICF, 1572 FDF. Now you got to communicate. Yeah, you got to tell all the vendors
Vendors, all the vendors.
that you moved, like the lab vendors who send the lab kits, the vendor that sends the IP,
IP.
the IRB, payments.
And then you need
I
to
think that's it.
explain to the sponsor also why you're moving
Yeah.
and all that stuff, right?
You need to. They have to approve it.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
they
before-
could tell you no, when it's not acceptable.
Mhm.
So you'll stop screening and
Oh.
maybe early term all the patients. That's an option.
So say you have 8 studies going on, you have to get approval from all 8
Each one.
sponsors.
Yeah, and you're not guaranteed that they're all gonna say
Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
They can say no,
If something
early
goes
term
wrong.
all the subjects, and then we'll do a closeout visit. But you can do a closeout visit, like they can't prevent you from moving.
But
But-
if that's the case, then what happens when we get like the budget? Do you get paid or not? You don't get
You
paid.
get paid for the early term, like you'll get paid for the visits you do.
It's,
But early term, there's a budget for that one too.
mhm.
It's just a visit. That one actually pays a lot because it's all the assessments.
Now, does that have to be negotiated for prior,
Yeah,
like prior to you starting the study?
yeah. Contract and budget gets negotiated like right away.
So you negotiate the budget for finishing the study, but you need to always negotiate a budget for early term as well.
Yeah, it's just part of the visits. It'll be on the budget worksheet,
Mm-hmm.
just with all the visits. Because the early term visit is also the last visit. It's the same.
Oh.
So the final visit or the early term is like the same visit. It's just the safety. It's all the assessments usually.
So if you do like if it's a 12-week thing and you're going to visit every week, so you only make it to week 3, then you're going to do an early term. You just do week 12. That
Yes, that would be correct. Yeah. If the sponsor requests that you do that.
request that
Yeah,
you
you
do,
have
right?
early term row at the end of schedule of visits.
Yeah.
You follow that.
But when is early term more commonly used? That's a good question. So early term. What's the difference between early term and loss to follow up?
Early term is when the subject is
Terminate.
discontinued by
Due to
from
some
our
reason,
end for some reason.
some medical reason.
Yeah, and loss
And
to
then loss to
follow
follow the
is
person
something the subject did.
absconding, like he
Yeah,
runs
he's
away.
not ready
He's
to
not
come
appearing
back.
on the site.
And how do sites try to
3
conduct
attempts.
the early term?
3 attempts to contact the
Yeah.
subject.
Document.
Document that.
Document.
Yeah, and if he comes, then we can.
That's right. Yeah. And if you can't, you can't. And also certified letter.
Certified letters.
So 3 calls
Plus certified.
Plus
plus a
certified.
certified letter.
Also
Mhm.
documented.
Especially if they have the IP with them still.
With them. Try to
You wanna
retrieve
get it
the
back.
IP.
Yeah. The site should always try to get the IP back,
Mhm.
even if the subject quits.
Yeah.
And they don't have to come in for early term. It's voluntary.
Yeah.
But
But
they should be
try
encouraged to return the
to
IP.
return the IP.
And that's documented with 3 calls and a certified letter.
So they might not be willing to come back to return the IP too. So is it okay for the site person to go to their place? Like we will have their address maybe.
It depends on the SOP of the site.
SAP.
For me, like for my site, I just will go do it. I'll go drive to the patient's house.
Oh.
I don't want to put like my staff at risk.
Right.
but I'll do it. I'll put myself at risk, but not my staff.
Oh.
But if like they know them,
Mhm.
you know, and the patient says just come pick it up, I don't feel like coming in. It's fine. But every site has a different SOP for that.
Oh.
So like these bigger universities, you know, they may have very strict. You cannot go visit patients at their homes
Right.
policies,
Right.
where like a small clinic won't have
Confidentiality,
that.
Yeah.
Like your private practice maybe has like a policy like that,
Mhm.
but maybe not the research, right? I don't know. Usually medical clinics, like they have some kind of policy where the staff shouldn't go to the
patient's
homes
Mhm.
because they don't want like inappropriate relationship between the patient.
Between patients
Yeah.
and the
Staff.
therapist.
Yeah. So it depends.
Mm.
But as the site owner, I'll go.
Yeah.
I've done it before. It's just not a big deal.
So you have SOP for it?
The SOP is very vague. It's just we will do 3 calls and a certified letter.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not gonna put that in a SOP, but I'll get the drug back.
But
or
then
I'll
how
try.
do you document? Like, how did you get the drug back?
I would say that I got it from the patient.
But
Just in
which
another
ways?
I wouldn't.
Wouldn't mention that. Okay.
Probably not, but I don't think it's a big deal if I did. But
Mhm.
then, that's a very good question. So, let's say I did document that. I drove to the patient's house and got the unused IP.
Mhm.
Technically, an auditor can say that I'm not following our IP transport log.
Mhm.
Yes, that could be.
So that's why I'm not going to document that.
Okay.
I'm just going to have the bottle back.
Mhm.
That's it. IP was returned. That's enough.
Here,
Because if you
sorry,
document,
it's not-
like you can get yourself into trouble,
Right.
right? Even though, what's the point of having an IP log for a drug that's never going to be used again, right? An auditor is still gonna frown upon that, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes these sponsors reuse the IP, like at closeout visit,
Right. Right. They do.
they'll get all the IP back,
Mm.
and they'll assume it was within the appropriate temperature. But what if when I drove to the person's house, it was like
Yeah.
100 degrees?
And
Like
why will
today.
patient keep their IPs under what temperature you ask them
Exactly.
for?
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. That's
But they reuse it sometimes. Depends on the
interesting.
drug.
Oh.
I've seen sponsors reuse IP.
Wow.
Depends if it's expensive. Yeah.
But then, is it ethical? Is it safe to do that?
No,
I don't know.
nobody knows like
Ah.
what temperature or anything.
Yeah. And you are using it on humans again
I've seen it being used again.
to do the extension studies also.
I've seen the sponsors ask for it back. And they've even said it's so that we can reuse it. So it must have been okay in that case.
They might be testing them. Right?
Yeah.
Each and every
I think
IP,
so.
how can
I don't think it was opioid. I would have been concerned.
Oh.
But it was like I can't remember, but I remember it happening, and they said it was expensive, and that they had production shortages.
That's
That's what they said.
So if you do an opioid study,
Now you get the DEA involved.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's intense to have to give,
Yes,
I mean, y'all don't do those.
we have, and it's very risky. They're not bad if you're following everything extremely by the letter.
Because
Was
when
it
it deals with
opioid?
the IP and you have to give it out, administer that to the patient and give out
Controlled
a blister
substance, yeah.
pack, to a patient.
And it's not just the FDA and the monitors you have to worry about. Like at that point, it's the DEA,
Mhm.
and they've been known to fine doctors per pill missing, like tens of thousands of
And so
dollars
if you
per
have a
pill.
loss to follow up with 10 pills,
You better go get those drugs somehow,
Yeah.
or you're gonna have like armed people in your office. Yeah,
yeah, I'm
with
sure.
handcuffs. With
Take you to jail.
yeah,
I'm sure.
yep.
I'm sure.
I mean, it's extreme, but
But
yeah,
when
Fines,
you're dealing with
fines.
controlled substances,
you get fines. They do that. So yeah, we have done controlled substance drugs. They're not my favorite, but
no.
we have done them. Yeah, so just be careful if you do. The PI needs a DEA license
Mhm.
on site, And if they have a DA license under another address, they need it under the research address as well.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we've been
And
doing
isn't
that.
it risky to deal with
You
those
might.
patients?
What's that?
Isn't it risky to deal with those patients?
It could be, yeah,
Mm.
because you have to differentiate the med seekers from the. I mean, it's hard to differentiate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like for site personnel also, it's.
And what if the patient takes the opioids and just to sell them?
Yeah, most of the
Yeah.
time they do.
You never know.
Yeah,
They
Yeah.
do.
and then try to do IP accountability on that.
Yeah, he's running his own trial. He's running his own trial.
Yeah.
You'll have more to worry about than a CRA.
Right.
But that one,
Dan, I was thinking about this moving of the site.
yeah,
So does IRB need to be also informed?
Yeah,
because
of course.
it's safety.
of course.
And then clear
Not only do they need to be informed, that's another one we missed.
address.
Change of address
Address.
form.
Change of
Yeah.
address in ICA.
There's a specific form called change of address
Yes.
form for the IRB.
For IRB. Yeah.
So it's almost like doing another initial questionnaire again. Have you got one of these initial? You're in the startup phase.
Mhm.
You got the IRB
The questionnaire,
Yeah, the
feasibility.
startup.
Uh-huh.
from the IRB.
I think we already have, yeah.
So they ask you, did you fill it out?
Dr. Patel filled it
Okay.
out.
They'll ask you like how many years of experience you have, how many studies you do, how many coordinators do you have on
Mhm.
staff. They're assessing.
I remember seeing it, but he filled it out. Both Dr. Patels filled it out.
And what do you think they're looking at the IRB? Like, what are they trying to?
If we are able to perform a study and conduct a study and be efficient, if we're actually a study and have patients, our site and have the patients, I guess.
Well, the IRB only cares about patient
Safety.
safety. They don't care about if you can recruit them.
Maybe she's talking about the one that they got from the sponsor.
The actual
Feasibility
feasibility survey is different.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like from a drug company.
Hmm.
If you're
Questionnaire.
applying for a study.
Oh, we've done those too, yeah.
Yeah.
I know we've done those.
But the IRB questionnaires just they want to see if how much PI oversight
Yeah.
Well,
and is
actually,
the
we-
site capable of maintaining patient safety,
Hmm.
and they have to approve it. So if you have one coordinator with 30 studies,
Mm-hmm.
How likely are we to be able to take care of our patients?
yeah,
Or keep them safe?
they
if
might
we
have
only
some questions. for
30.
you.
Time.
One PI with 30 studies going on.
Essentially, sites can't even cannot start, right? The research without their permission. It's
Yeah,
impossible.
not without IRB approval.
Without
Yep.
approval.
Did you
And-
guys find that in the rec binder, the IRB approval letter?
No,
No?
I didn't have. That's also one of the things.
There must be another rec binder somewhere.
Must
I
be
mean,
because
I
so
was
many
like-
things can't go
And these are
missing.
like important things. So I was thinking maybe
I'll have to
there's
ask Monica.
something either we are missing something or
Yeah.
there's another binder for it.
Yeah, we were just
It's not
thinking.
possible. Like
I'll
the
have
whole
to look through.
yeah, because everything is like missing.
There must be a
and-
rec binder missing, like two,
Maybe we
sometimes
should-
Maybe
before.
she would have filed some important ones somewhere.
Yeah.
Or maybe we need a ophthalmology checkup.
Ophthalmologist.
Maybe that too.
Because I
Maybe.
kept on looking
Yeah.
what's happening.
What else? What
When-
else?
I was also wondering for this, the clear waiver and certificate. Would you think that's important or
Yeah.
yeah? Good.
CLIA waiver. Good.
So does that change when we move the site?
Yeah.
Because it has an address. Oh yeah.
You need a CLIA waiver.
Hmm.
A new one.
A new one.
And if you have a DEA license for,
DEA
you need
license.
that, a new one with new
With a
address.
new address.
Yeah. Not the medical license. That doesn't have to change address necessarily,
Mm-hmm.
but the DEA for sure does. If you have a DEA. What else? What else did you guys catch or have or are unclear about?
I'm asking him now if we've done that. I'm just
Mhm.
curious.
He was asking
This
about
was
it,
like
so I
many
think
things were in detail, right?
he was asking me how to do it.
Acha, maybe
He's probably gonna ask you to do it.
Probably.
You just need to Google the IRB, find out who your IRB is, and then
What?
So the
Find their
sponsor
website.
is different than the RV.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
our sponsor,
क्या होता है?
well,
they have to be different.
so I'm just confused. We have Farm Olem
Yeah,
Any,
okay. So you have a
signed.
sponsor.
And then it says
Dubara signed.
Westward
Dubara.
Columbus,
Signed.
or Westward
Yeah,
Columbia.
you have a sponsor.
Uh-huh.
You may or may not have a CRO. This is not necessary, but most still do. You have site. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, this may not be necessary, but usually it is. So these two are necessary. Okay. Now you have an IRB. That's an ethics committee. Okay, that's a completely independent. All they care about is patient safety. They don't care about the drug. They care if the drug is safe enough for human testing. They don't care if it's approved or it's not. They have no financial stake in
They don't care if it gets
they could care
marketed
less.
or whatever. They don't care.
They could care less. And then you have a bunch of other vendors too, right? Like labs, EDC, IWRS. You have like, sometimes you have like a trial master file, different kind of things. So that's the dynamics, okay? And as a site, you're interacting with all these, and as a sponsor and CRO, you are as well. It gets complicated, and then each of these like have its own password, and like the IP, the vendor who sends IP, right? Sometimes that's usually a company called Catalent. There's like I think 8 vendors per study, because then you have eDiary too, like ePro for some studies, like for yours, right? The one you
We
have.
have an e-diary.
Also,
E-diary.
someone like Iron Mountain,
No,
document
no.
retention.
Patient diary, patient reported
No,
outcome.
I'm talking about the vendor.
Oh, another vendor?
Another
Yeah, like
vendor.
archiving.
Mm-hmm.
Archiving.
Archiving.
I'm writing sideways. This is amazing.
Labs.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, and there's more. There's like sometimes a payment, like how you pay the patients, how the site pays the patients. Usually it's cash, but sometimes there's vendors that will do that. Yeah, and that's the site has to log in and do that. Oh, EKG vendor.
EKG vendor, yeah.
You have to submit the result, the ECG
And
to the vendor.
So if you're going through lots of scales, then someone to
Rater assessment.
Rater.
You guys are getting Rater certified or doing the training. You're not going to get certified, but you're doing the training tomorrow.
Okay.
Rater training.
Rater training.
I mean, look how many vendors we have, right?
Yeah.
So, and these are all separate passwords, separate contacts. You got to notify all of them that you moved. Right? It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But that's in a nutshell how it works. So just remember the IRB, definitely not the sponsor. Now sometimes the CROs own some of these vendors, like Covance owns LabCorp.
LabCorp.
So they, if a sponsor is using Covance as a CRO,
Quintiles.
they automatically get LabCorp, and Quintiles is merged with
IQVIA.
Quest. Yeah.
Quest.
So it makes it easier, and that's some of the CROs try to argue their core competency is, or their competitive advantage, is that they own some of these vendors, so it makes it easier on the site. Because the sponsor does care if the site is happy doing the study. Why?
Because if they're not happy, they're not going to have anybody to
That's right.
perform the study.
No patience, right?
Right.
So they do want to they understand this is like a lot for sites, so they are concerned with managing all these passwords. And again, like let's say you lose your IWRS password and you can't randomize the patient, and the patient gets anxious and they want to leave now. Then now they want to quit. They're like, I've been here 4 hours, I'm out of here.
Even
Yeah.
drug dispensing, we can do through that, right?
Yeah.
IWRS.
So it has to run smoothly, or else like you're losing patients. I've had patients walk out.
Walk out?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Hey, I've been sitting here for 3 hours, and because we're waiting on getting the password,
Getting.
and the password people are slow, or they don't care, or they're like usually in India or somewhere else. They're not even awake.
Right.
Yeah. No, they are like EKG,
Right.
India, like the help desks.
Yeah.
And so the patient's got to leave. Now you lost like data.
Yeah.
But this is like someone who would have randomized just because you don't have everything in order. So it's a lot to manage. You're
So
gonna learn a lot.
Why is it required that the RB have approval over like advertisement and
Because they don't want to be coercive. They don't want the site to coerce
the patient in
vulnerable populations. Yeah. It's hard to enforce, but they do what they can. Like if you do study specific advertising, you need IRB approval. If you just do generic branding about your site, like, hey, we are XYZ research and we do these indications,
You don't have to have approval.
I don't think so. And I've asked a few IRBs and they've said the same thing. But if it's, I'm research XYZ, we're right now recruiting for this asthma study with these qualifications,
Then you have to have it.
yes. And then there's gray area in between. What if you just say, we have asthma studies? Or study, parentheses, S,
Parentheses.
parentheses. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Depends which IRB you ask.
Yeah.
But just be on the safe side. I keep them generic.
He's calling me
Ah, there you go.
now.
It's time to go, huh?
No, Dr. Patel, where I text
Oh.
him. Yeah.
Tell them you need to stay another week.
Hello.
What else? Do you guys have anything else?
Hey, I'm still here. I was just, we were just talking about that. I was just curious.
Yeah, those are just logs.
Logs not available.
Yeah.
That's when we wrote. I think
How
log
about the
logs.
action
We need to
items?
go
I
fill it
think?
out.
We covered.
Yes, see?
We covered those.
Those.
I think we've done that. We've done the
Okay.
screening IP.
We were just curious
temperature,
what we're talking about
IPS, TSP is missing.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
override.
That
We've
was
done.
cool.
Yeah, I think we've done.
Let Jenna's
Okay.
issues.
Okay, bye.
Let's take Jenna's issues.
He was like, yeah, you need to go to the website
Yeah, I
and fill it
told
out.
you.
I'm like, okay.
I knew he was gonna ask you to do that. That was her PI.
I know.
Now we know.
Now we know. Nancy
Patel.
Patel and Dr. Ravi Patel.
Is he Indian?
Yes.
Yes, he
Oh, there you
is.
go.
They both are, yeah.
Gujarati.
Patel is Gujarati.
Patel
And a
is
lot of
Gujarati.
businessmen all over
Anyways,
the
you are
world
very
are
close to me.
Patels.
Just 100 miles from mine.
Yes, that is true.
They're very business minded.
But there's no. I
uh,
thought I had a friend from Pakistan named Patel. No.
Really? Maybe they
Maybe
settled
not.
there.
We don't know much about
Pakistan
Pakistan
and
Oh,
settled
okay.
there probably.
But Pakistan,
Okay.
who will go in?
No, there are. There are
There are?
even Sikh who have settled there.
Who
you
they
know?
do allow? I mean, I
No,
wasn't.
they, because when the partition happened, a lot of people opted, and then some of them have relatives, and some Gujaratis have a Muslim background also. So they speak Gujarati plus this thing. So they
I need to go visit.
Yeah. So they're different
Yeah.
combinations.
I know, I want to go. I'm talking to Dr. Nancy Patel and like the culture and the weddings and the
Yeah.
parties. And,
Very
like,
grand.
You'll love
lavish.
it.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
you'll enjoy
Everything
it.
should be
Tell her to
colorful,
take me
not
with
only
her.
the black, grey, and white.
That's right.
Yeah.
Where is
Everything has to be-
Bollywood? What city is that?
Mumbai. I'm
Oh,
from Mumbai.
Actually,
yeah.
And most of them don't. Those who are in the Bollywood industry, they don't like being called Bollywood.
Bollywood.
Yeah, because they say it's not Bollywood.
So Mumbai is like LA
But we
and
call
New
it-
Delhi is like New York?
New York, we don't have like
No?
skyscrapers. Like, we don't have those tall. But Gurgaon,
Bangalore.
Bangalore, you have all the
Bangalore,
Tech.
all IT company. I
Tech.
was staying in Bangalore
Yeah.
before I came here. I was working in Bangalore
multinationals.
That's the one I know about a
Yeah.
lot
Even
about.
Gurgaon.
because a lot of CROs in
Yeah.
Bangalore.
A lot of
Yeah.
even Gurgaon. That's like New York. You can say it's coming up like Dubai maybe. We
Yeah,
call it
yeah.
like
There you go.
it's
Ah.
very
Mhm.
happening kind of
Mhm,
now.
mhm.
All the multinational companies are investing there.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Amex and everything. All the big companies are there.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Jana, anything else?
Yeah.
I know it's 4:00.
Mm.
Anything you're unsure about?
Can I take you back with me?
I actually want to visit South Carolina.
Please come visit.
Not in the
Oh,
summer
yeah.
though. I don't
Yeah,
want to go
come
there
visit.
now.
No, the humidity's bad.
Yeah,
Don't
I'm
come
okay
now.
now. Maybe in the winter.
Come in the fall.
You get snow?
Fall, yeah, we do.
You get snow?
In February.
Wow.
Yeah.
February,